Good start to the morning.
Yeah. Buzzbait in the pads. Hey, I'm Bob Murray. It's Delaware Valley Outdoors. Stay tuned. I think we're going to be good. All right.
Delaware Valley Outdoors, your best source for fishing information on TV, radio, and the internet.
All right.
Good start.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Bob Murray. This is Delaware Valley Outdoors. And I'm with my good friend Warren Brady, and we're doing some summertime topwater buzz baiting, throwing baits into the weeds and sticks with heavy line.
17-pound test.
All right, yeah. You need that in this stuff, don't you, Warren?
Absolutely. You want to play with them when they're in the live well.
That's it. Warren, what are we kind of talked about it a little bit before we got on the water, but we got a bunch of pads here, and I know you were just talking about how you're going to use a buzz bait, and what do you got on there now?
I got on a Cavitron Buzzbait. I'm throwing 20-pound Berkeley Iron Silk, and basically they've been hitting on a black Buzzbait, so I throw a black skirt on the white head, and got the first fish this morning. Helped me to do very well in a tournament the other night, and see if we can't continue that today.
Now, you said you didn't put a trailer hook on that because of the pads. Is that your just preference or what?
Well, when I'm throwing a buzzbait in pads that are as heavy as these and as thick as these, I really don't want to have a trailer hook on because it's so easy to get hung up without a trailer hook, and having that extra hook on there just makes it that much easier to get hung up because you have to kind of steer the buzzbait through the pads just like you're driving a car through a test.
Mm-hmm. What we're doing here also is that Warren is throwing the buzzbait, and I switched over to the super sinker here because a lot of times you're missing the bite. I'll throw this right behind it,
and then they'll follow it up.
And then I'll follow it up because we just had that blow up over here. I threw right behind it and got the fish. So it's a good way if you're doing something like this where two guys are fishing, unless you got a huge buzzbait action. But here we're trying to catch some fish, following it up with the other bait, and it'll really do a nice job that way. You mentioned about short striking the buzzbait.
Right. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll come up and just out of reaction strike, what they'll do is they'll come up and they'll see it and they'll just short strike at the skirt, which is why a lot of people will use a trailer hook. Mm-hmm. And like I was saying before, in this kind of mesh you can't. And a lot of times you'll only get about 50 to 60% of the fish landed that'll actually come up and really aggressively hit the buzzbait. So that's part of the territory. You'll get a lot of strikes, but you won't quite land as many fish because of the short strikes.
A lot of times you could even clip this a little bit too. If you really are getting so many that they're hitting that, they'll clip it up a little bit, mm-hmm. and then they'll finally do it. But yeah, I agree with you that look at that. There's fish all over this place.
We're gonna have to go after that guy.
Yeah.
A lot of times, Bob, I've noticed fishing out here in the pads is that when you bump the buzzbait into the pad and then pause it for a second, a lot of times a bass will come up and hit that. It's sort of like the same effect when you're running a spinnerbait close to a log and you bump it and let it flutter down. Mm-hmm. They'll come up and strike it. A lot of times it'll happen the same way in the pads with a buzzbait.
So you just want to hit it off of the pad, mm-hmm. Let it deflect almost.
Right. What I'm using today for my equipment is I'm using a Fluger Gold Medalist Series 6.5 foot medium action bait casting rod and the Fluger Tryon Series reel. And the thing I like about using this is it's a 6.3 to 1 gear ratio, so you have that faster speed. So if you get in there and you get a fish that hits you in the pads and you need to really high speed that fish out to get it to the boat, mm-hmm. this reel is going to have that ability to do that rather than using a lower gear ratio and having to reel twice as fast to get
because
the fish
you want to keep that, you want to keep the buzzbait also up on top.
On top,
and
exactly.
And the faster you can, the quicker the ratio of the reel, the easier it is to keep that bait up on top of the water.
Plus it's easier to fight the fish. If you have a reel that's fast enough to where you can pull the fish across the top of the water instead of having him pulling you and getting you tangled in the pads.
Right, and you got to go in and get them.
You got a lot better chance of landing the fish.
Yeah. Right back after this with more buzzbait action.
The danger dog will bite your ankle. The danger dog will bite your
Want to feel appreciated? When you spend time with kids, anytime, it helps prevent crime.
This is the hand that sows the seed, that grows the forest, that drinks from the stream, that hugs the mountain, that gives shape to the wind, that carries the kite, that is flown by the child, that is loved by the woman, that toils at the job, that gives to Earthshare, that supports the hand, that sows the seed.
All life is woven together. How can we choose which environmental cause to support? Earthshare, the workplace giving program, makes it simple by bringing the leading environmental groups together under one umbrella. Support Earthshare, and you support them all, including the hands that sow the seeds and protect the forests and the streams and the children. To learn more, please visit our website.
Mommy, what's wrong?
You can refuse to be a victim, and we can help. Call now about the I Refuse to Be a Victim safety course from the women of the NRA. It's not about guns or joining the NRA. It's about planning your own personal safety strategy. Call now.
Warren, we have what I would call optimal conditions today for throwing a buzzbait. But when's the best time to really use the buzzbait at this time of the year?
In this time of the year, Bob, I really like to use the buzzbait in like the first 2 or 3 hours of the day and the last 2 hours at night. You seem to get a lot of aggressive, active fish. With the sun going down, they move into the pads and into the lower water levels, and they become more active and they start to feed. So I tend to catch a lot more of my fish, again, the first 2 and the last 2 hours of daylight. Today's an optimal day because, as you can see, it's overcast, and for some reason these fish just live, they just turn on in overcast weather.
Yeah, they'll stay up closer than they would if it got sunny, and they would just go back in there real deep.
Right. When the sun comes out, they tend to go into deeper water and go back to your deeper structure. This is what will bring them up to the surface and up into the shallow water to feed.
Yeah, you can throw buzzbait all day today.
Oh yeah, that's all I've been throwing.
And we've caught fish.
Yes, we have.
Just all through the morning.
It's been a good day. Now, Bob, on days like today, we've been buzzbaiting. We've had some great weather for it. It's been overcast. We've been fishing in the pads, but there are times when the buzzbaiting is going to shut down for a while, and that's why we start doing what we're doing, which is pitching and flipping lizards and jigs and super sinkers into the pockets like here we have here in the pads, and it's another good thing that'll help turn on some fish.
Yeah, and it's not that we have the buzzbaits ready, that if we see any fish start to break, you can just start throwing again. Now, what kind of pads do you want to pitch to, though, Warren? Is it?
Well, right now we're on a section of pads here where we're in about 4 or 5 feet of water, and right after we come out to this point, we drop off into a channel that goes to about 13 feet deep. So this way, in case you have fish that are still holding tight to the cover but are close to deeper water, we can try and catch a few.
So they'll just move out to deeper water during the day and then
come right back to the pads in the evening and in the early morning to feed.
Now you're throwing, what are you throwing now?
I'm throwing a Texas rig lizard that's black with blue flake.
And you got a little weight on that or not?
3/8 of an ounce, bullet weight.
And what are you doing with it?
Just flipping it, pitching it and flipping it into any holes that I can find in the pads.
I'm still going with this super sinker. I've had a bunch of hits on it. I've had a couple of fish actually were on. And I know that I have it hooked wacky style or Jersey rig style, which is not the optimal thing to do in pads, but it's fairly weedless.
For the most part.
Yeah, but you get a little bit of a
snag here and there.
Yeah, snag here and there. It comes loose. I like that way it falls, you know, especially with these pads and stuff, because you can just pitch it and it just, you know, doesn't make a very big impact when it hits the water. and just fall so slowly that any bass that's hanging around the base of these things has got to take a look at it.
Absolutely. It just teases them to where they just want to hit it out of frustration.
Yeah. Yeah, we got pretty heavy line on there, Warren.
I'm using 20-pound Berkeley Iron Silk.
You like that?
I love it. It's great for pitching and flipping. It's very abrasion resistant and it's very smooth. You stretch it out and you see it has no line memory to it.
And you need something. You need pretty heavy test line to get these fish out of this pads. If they turn into those pads, man,
you're cooked.
Yeah, you got to go in and get them.
And that's one of the reasons I was saying before that I like. Oh, I just missed one. One of the reasons I was saying before that I like using a higher speed gear ratio reel so that I can try and get the pads or the fish on top of the pads rather than having them tangle me up within them.
Yeah, and burying in there, then you got to either go in or you just can't get them out.
There you go.
Like you're saying, Warren, you don't know where these fish are going to be. Now, we're throwing this super sinker in there. Oh, come here, you dog. And
slippery little fella, isn't he?
Ooh. And I pitched in there about 4 times into that one spot. And then finally he just came in and swam off with it. But you said you never know which angle.
Which hole, which angle.
Yeah. And again, we just got into a little deeper water here. But I pitched into that hole probably 4 or 5 times.
Got one.
There we go. A nice fish.
Nice fish. Hold him up. There we go. Ooh, another little slippery devil.
Yeah.
A decent sized fish.
Yeah.
And here we are. We moved out across that point. We're in 8 or 9 feet of water right on the edge of the pads.
And then we just started picking up fish.
And we just started picking up fish.
Yeah.
Nice fish.
Nice fish.
In the pads. Let's get him back in the water so he can go back to doing what he was doing.
So I want to just reiterate that what we had mentioned before. We were catching fish on the buzzbait, and then you said, if it slows down, let's start pitching into the same basic spots we were throwing the buzzbait, but we're just taking little edges and little corners and pitching into it.
Pitching right into it, and the fish, if they're there, they're jumping right on it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're a little laid back, and you just got to drop that bait right in their face to get a strike out of them.
And I think that's important to actually mention that, Warren, is that you really do have to almost set it right in front of them, because they're not going to move far off of these pads to go get anything. And so when you just pitch it in there, they're just going to lay right at the base of these pads, and just when it comes dropping down, they'll come up, pick it up, and just swim away with it.
Swim right away.
We were lucky we got those fish out of the pads. You got to move them quick, right?
Yeah, you got to reel them quick to get them out of those pads, or else they're going to get you tangled, and then you got to go in after them. That's when you see all the acrobatics on TV when they're diving outside the boat trying to get
leaning
the fish
in and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's important. As soon as you feel the hook, the bite, you got to move the fish out. And now look, we're in 8 feet of water now.
Right now we're in 8 feet of water, and right as you get back into these pads, you're only in about 4 feet of water. So
they're laying right on that edge.
Right on the edge of the drop off, right next to the pads. And what I'm doing is I'm just throwing the lizard in at the pads and letting it drop right down the drop off.
Yeah, now that fish that I had before, again, I pitched back into that thing. That's another thing. You got to keep pitching. Don't just pitch one time into one spot.
No, I pitch at least 3 or 4 times in different angles and every hole you never know which way the fish is facing, which way it's going to take to provoke that strike out of them.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of guys don't realize, that certain fish will just take that bait on a certain angle, and they won't even come if it doesn't come at that angle. They're not going to touch it. And but you got to throw it back in there a number of times.
And one thing I like about this lizard bob that I was telling you about, I actually talked to you about this on the radio show. This is that Terminator Snapback, that new Cyberflex material. And all the fish that I've caught on this, it looks like it's barely been touched.
And we've been throwing it into some nasty junk.
Yeah.
And just the abrasion of the pads will just tear up. I mean, my worm's getting tore up. I know that because I'm pulling it through. But look at that, how that, now that really snaps too, right?
Yep. You can take it, and you can stretch it all the way out, and it comes right back into place.
That's really, and that's at the, what is it, 3X did you say?
No, this is the Terminator Snapback.
Oh, Snapback. And you can catch a ton of fish on there
without changing it.
Yeah.
I have not changed the lizard off of here since I've started to catch fish on it, and we're talking at least 5 or 6 days worth of catching fish. Probably a dozen fish or so on the same lizard, and I haven't even had to change it.
No, it looked brand new.
You can hear the beep a little louder.
The Jakes program has helped me so much in the outdoors. For a long time, I didn't even know what conservation even was. I want to do my part for wildlife. I love being a Jake. Whether you hunt or not, the Jakes program has something for everyone. I know I'm doing my part for wildlife. I really believe children hold the key to the future of wildlife. And NWTF believes it too.
Each year, thousands are senselessly killed by people with no criminal record at all. People like you.
Properly inflating my tires burns less fuel and saves me money on gas. Yeah, I'm saving Mother Nature from pollution, but more importantly, she saved me $11. Ow!
Environmental defense. Get green.
By keeping my car regularly tuned, I save money on gas and repairs. That also means cleaner air. You know, feels good to help save the cash, planet.
Environmental defense. Get green. For more tips, go to getgreen.com.
You know, we sing for millions of girls, but helping out in schools, that's the real deal, baby.
I know our love can multiply.
I'm the cute one, you know what I'm saying?
Have you ever been backstage before? Cause you're the exit.
I think you'll find that gravity is key in what I do.
Once was one, but now we're two. I'm spinning out of
Oh.
Now, Bob, you see how we're coming up here to a point in the pads? This is a really good spot to ambush some bass. They like to hang out by these points, especially when there's a drop-off into deeper water with a point on the pads like this. Like right now, we're in 4 feet, and once you come out here to the left a little bit, off of this point, it drops back off to 7 or 8 feet of water. And especially when you have another area with a cut-in back to the right here where it cuts back in, this is just a prime location to find bass just sitting there ready to ambush.
So when you look at a pad field like we have here, you kind of look at different spots to really make your cast more advantageous. Don't waste your time in a lot of other spots. Try to hit this point first. Try to get to that cut, and you should do better that way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Always look for the points where there's different cutouts and openings in pads. Especially if you see the pads moving from activity underneath, like right there. You definitely want to pitch that thing right in there and see if you can't catch that fish.
But that's what you want to look for, those ambush points.
Yes, definitely. Now see, Bob, what we did is we just came around this point over here, and one thing you have to realize is, like we were saying earlier, is that sometimes, you know, you're not just going to throw it and catch a fish. A lot of times you're going to have to throw it different times to the same spot to trigger a strike, and a lot of times try and hit it from a different angle. So the first time we came around, we hit it coming towards us. Now we came around the point and we're throwing at it at a different angle trying to catch a fish.
Well, Warren, we're here with the tackle box section of the show, and this bait came in handy this morning. Buzzbait pads.
2 of my favorite things to do.
Now, one of the things we were throwing in some pretty heavy slop today. I mean, the pads are really thick, and there's all kinds of weeds and stuff in there. You were throwing this on what pound test line?
20-pound test.
20. Yeah, see, that's what you really need, something heavy, because if you do have, we had some fish in there, it's hard to get them out. We had a great, basically a full day of not too much sunshine, right? But you recommend these when?
Basically first 2 hours of the morning, last 2 hours at night in the summertime, and if you get an overcast day like we had for the majority of the morning, you can fish it through. Once the sun started to break through the clouds and the topwater bite came off, that's when we started to shy away from it.
Right, but matter of fact, not too long ago, we had a good blow up on this, on these baits. Now, you like the black color, or is it something that?
It's something I found works well in the cloudy conditions. There are times when I will throw a white or a chartreuse, depending upon the water clarity.
Yeah, I was throwing a chartreuse bait today too. Again, here I have one that kind of mimicked yours. You had a little bit of black. You had the black skirt, so I took my my Durstein bait. And I used the black head on it. And I caught fish on this too. Matter of fact, we had a number of fish on these.
It was like bang, 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 right after another.
Today. Yeah. Again, top water, early morning, late at night, get those low light conditions, and that's happened. But then when that bite went away, we went to our plastics, and you were throwing a lizard. You like to throw that now. What kind of lizard is this now?
No, that's a Terminator Snapback lizard, made out of that Cyberflex material. It's very durable. I mean, I still have the same one on my rod that I've been using for the last 2 weeks. I haven't even had to take it off yet. I've caught at least a dozen fish on it, and as you can see, it's still in working condition.
And we're going through some tough conditions. We're pulling through some
nasty pads.
Nasty pads there. And again, with that snapback thing, look at that. That's just amazing.
And it just goes right back into place.
And there. Now, color-wise, what do you like?
I like the black with the blue flake. Kind of mimics the jig a little bit. I'm not used to throwing a jig too much, so I like to stick with the Texas rig plastics, and they seem to like that color. And in cloudy or muddy or murky water situations, I might even go to a chartreuse with some black flake in it to give it that little extra brightness so the fish has a little easier time seeing it.
Now even you can do with the tail there, spike it a little bit.
Yeah.
You can change that tail to a chartreuse. And then you're just Texas rigging this?
Just Texas rigging it with a 3/8 ounce bullet weight.
And we're just pitching it in.
Just pitching it right in.
Well, now, two of the other favorite baits that I have are my super sinkers. And you like them too. Now you said again, mimicking the lizard, you like the black with the blue flake, right?
Yes.
And you were Texas rigging this one.
Yes, I was.
And why was that?
Well, basically, I don't like to get holed up in the pads. I like to make sure when I'm setting the hook that I have a fish on there, not a pad. So what I like to do is when I'm fishing it and I'm pitching it into pads or even a heavy brush or fallen tree situation, I will Texas rig the super sinker. If I'm throwing it in a grass line or on the edge of lily pads, I will wacky style it so it has that flutter fall to it, but not when I'm actually pitching into the pads.
And I went both ways today, but I finally went to my wacky style, which is a little difficult to do, but I caught fish on it.
Yes, you did.
And it was thing. Again, I kind of went to this pumpkin seed with a little bit of a gold flake in it. This pumpkin seed color is a great color, in a lot of baits. But I really like it, and I like the density of these, and as it just falls, we caught fish on it. And again, it's that pad fishing, and we're throwing it into the pads is difficult, as we all know. But right on the edge, you still could throw it into those pockets as we were pitching, and we did quite well. We caught a bunch of fish on that kind of stuff. And again, I was just using it with an exposed Gamakatsu hook and just wacky styling it and doing that. The last bait that I have to mention was, when you get into a situation where Buzzbait had to stop because of the light conditions, our plastics were still producing fish, but I went to a spinnerbait, and we caught fish on a spinnerbait, and it was my grass off there. It was it's a new bait that I've been using just for my own preference, and that's a Durstein 4-bladed spinnerbait with the Colorado blades and then that one willow leaf. And what it was doing was I was able to pitch it up in there and just keep it moving slowly through the weeds. And spinnerbait's fairly weedless, let's face it, but it really held up into that water column a lot more. And I think the combination of the gold and the copper and then these silver blades are just a really thing. And I like this 4-bladed thing, like you had mentioned before, is that profile.
It kind of makes it look like there's more than one fish. It gives it that school appearance to it that turns the bass on a little more. When they see they have the opportunity to take more than one forage at a time, they tend to take that so they don't have to exert as much energy.
And they saw that, and that's a nice profile, and it really worked well. Well, Warren, Buzzbait, pads.
Summertime.
Summertime.
Top water. There's nothing like it.
We got to go back and catch a few more around the bend here. I know there's one or two more for us.
Oh, I know there is too.
Hey, that's a tackle box.
Got it on. Nice fish. Got it.
Nice buzzbait.
There's a nice summertime buzzbait fish in the pads.
Hey, Warren, I want to thank you for taking me out here and doing some buzzbait fishing in the summertime. Hey, I'm Bob Murray, Delaware Valley Outdoors. Hey, don't forget to stop at our website, www.delawarevalleyOutdoors.com, for fishing reports, weather reports, all kinds of stuff. Hey, I'll see you again. Good going, Warren. Nice fish.